by Onaje, who's a superstar real estate investor. He's been doing it for a little while. He's got huge amounts of experience, and today we'll be talking about moving from investing in real estate to doing short-term rentals. Onaje, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bart. I'm very happy to be here and hopefully learn some things and maybe give some knowledge as well.
Beautiful. Look, I picked you up on Clubhouse. I heard some of the things that you were saying, and you come from a place of a lot of experience. The way that you actually talk, the sort of advice that you give, and the way that you can impart information, it really struck me as something that's really valuable, and I think that the audience today will really benefit from that and benefit from your skills and your experience. I would love you to introduce yourself, let everybody know your history and a bit about your experience so people get context as to who you are.
Yeah, my name's Onaje Barnes. I'm a long-term buy and hold real estate investor. I'm always going to be a long-term buy and hold real estate investor, right? But you can use different models to hold property long-term, and so that's kind of what I'm shifting into. But as far as my background, I got out of college. I went to the University of Texas at Austin. Go hook 'em horns for any of my Longhorn fans out there. And I majored in economics. I was originally chemical engineering, but I didn't last too long in chemistry itself. So I switched over to economics, which I love. And I got heavy into data analytics. And ironically, I entered the fashion industry. So I worked for Macy's for about 3 years, Macy's department stores. Then I moved to JCPenney for a year as a strategic planner. And then I moved where the company I work for now, which is the largest shoe company in the world, which is Nike. And I do strat planning and sales for them. So my background is really into data science. And I kind of was into data science before, like that was like an actual like terminology. I probably would have majored in it if there was such a thing at the time, but now it's like all the rave. And so what I do is I've always used data as a form to guide me through my investments in general. And I would say 3 years of that 3 years I was working at Macy's, they actually went through a merger, and so I was like 25 years old. I'm thinking I'm going to work with them forever, like anybody else young and hungry out of college. And they went through a merger, and 25,000 people got laid off. I was lucky enough to they wanted to keep me, but at that point it was kind of like, no, maybe I just need to move around a little bit. And I really just kind of got the mental shift that, you know what, no company is ever going to really make you rich in life, right? Like, that's not their job. Your job is to work for them, right? Get your paycheck, be happy or whatever, but their job is not to get you wealthy. And that's really where I kind of started that path of just understanding wealth and cash flow and passive income and all of these terminologies that a lot of us in real estate we like, right? And I read the whole Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm sure a lot of people have read that book. And so for me, that just sparked my interest into real estate. Now, fast forward a little bit. After that, I really spent like a year just diving in, learning everything I need to learn, reading everything I need to read, all that good stuff. And, so ironically, we're also coming up on 2008. And what do we remember about 2008? The global financial crisis, right? And so I'm entering real estate when real estate's on fire, right? Like the whole world is blowing up because of credit default swaps and real estate prices going down. And that's actually the moment that I just so happen to be learning all of this stuff. And so my background in economics did teach me one crucial thing that I think most people in real estate or most people in investment know. You buy low and you sell high. And so I was bold enough and I just understood, and I was scared as hell, but I did understand that this was a low moment historically. I didn't know how far the market was going to keep dropping. So ironically enough, we bought our first home, the one that we're actually living in right now, 14 years ago, and we bought a foreclosure. We bought it 1 month after Lehman Brothers crashed. So most people kind of remember when Lehman Brothers crashed was kind of when it was like going down. That's when I bought that property. It was a 1960s build, all that. And, I stumbled in what they call the BRRRR strategy, which is like buy it right, buy low, buy an ugly home in a good neighborhood, and then you rehab it. I didn't know what I was doing, but I dove right in, rehab the property, fixed it up, and all that good stuff.
And
Um,
for our international listeners as well, a rehab is a refurb. Just in case
yeah,
you
okay,
do,
sorry.
there's that. No, because it's true. Because some people go rehab. What is he even talking about? It's a refurb as well. So those the two terms, just so
Refurb,
that people know.
gotcha,
Yeah,
gotcha.
oh, good.
Yeah, so rehabilitate the home, fix it up, fix and flip, HDTV, right? So we did that on our own personal home, which, as many of us know, that forces appreciation into your house, right? Like that's a great way to increase the equity in your homes. Particularly in America, you can use the banking system as a way to kind of get some of this equity out. So after about 6 months, just following the banking rules and regulations here, we were able to do what you call a cash out refi, where we refinanced the property and got cash back. And we had about 80,000 equity. And this was the financial crisis, and I'm in Houston, Texas. And we used about 40 of that thousand to buy another property. And we bought that other property. And this again, 2008, 2009, bought that other property, did the same thing again, rehabbed it up, refurbed it up, and put a tenant in there. We put a tenant in there for about $900, and my mortgage and taxes and insurance and all that was about $450. So at the time, I was like, "Hey, I'm making about 450 bucks a day, a month," and at the time I was maybe probably 26, 27 years old. That paid for my car note, and I thought that was good. So I kept doing it. And you fast forward about, I would say, maybe about 10 years, 11 years later, we had about 9 properties and some land. And I just kind of realized that we were kind of just moving too slowly from a cash flow perspective. Because again, 300, 400, $500 on properties at the time, from what I knew, was great, right? But so I wanted to accelerate. I wanted to get our cash flow, our passive cash flow, up to where we could retire quicker than the pace that we were on, and that's when I really got into multifamily. And so at the time, we had several properties paid off. We got properties on all kind of great deals during the financial crisis. We were buying low, buying low and keeping. Instead of selling high, we were keeping ours. And so that's kind of where I got into multifamily, understood the underwriting there. And what I love about multifamily is that you have a lot more control with the banks and valuations. A property is valuated based on the cash flow and not the comparable sales, right? Not the sales of the area. So for me, that was much more advantageous to get into that space because I can control a lot more of the elements of the deal, right? I can raise the value of the property by increasing rents, decreasing expenses, and things like that, which I was kind of good at from an economic perspective. And so we used 2 homes to purchase that 21 unit. Um, about a couple years ago. So we were 2.5 years in on that deal, and that deal's doing well. And then I kind of got on Clubhouse. I've been interested in the short-term rental space for a while. A good friend of mine is in the New Orleans market, which, from my understanding, about 4 or 5 years ago, before some regulations, New Orleans was probably one of the stronger markets in the U.S. And he had been killing it. And he had a triplex, and his triplex was making more money than I was making on my 9 single families. And that's kind of when I was like, whoa, what's going on here?
You're missing something there, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an interesting story because I guess at the end of the day, so for everyone that's listening, your background sort of comes from sort of like a traditional real estate model, going in, buying property, and I guess the biggest pain of that is the lag time. Everything just takes a while to get you to where you need to be. And now there's this sort of land rush of people like, oh, great, short-term rentals. I can make a lot more money, a lot quicker. The numbers are just fantastic. So that's the story, right?
Yeah.
And then people go, oh, you should get into co-hosting or arbitrage or do this and do that. And it's a very complicated field, and it's not as simple. It's not as simple as just going, you know what? It's the same model as renting a place out. I'm going to now do short-term rentals. It's completely different. What you're using is the equity or the property that you've got and for a different purpose, but there's also things that you need to consider. So that's what I want to talk about today with you, because before we started recording, you said, you know what, Bart, I'm going to get into it, but you said, I'm not jumping into it straight away. I'm going to do my research. I'm going to be strategic about this. So for anyone that's in a similar situation as you, where is your brain at? What are you doing? What are you thinking about before you actually even get going down this path?
Yeah. So one, my background from a corporate perspective is in strategic planning. That's actually my background. And when you when you strategically plan anything, right, you go through like, what are the things that I need? You spend a lot of time figuring out how do I make this work, right? So I spent years knowing about short-term rentals, right? But I always had these barriers. I knew that the operations were so much harder than long-term rent, right? It's a lot more turnover. I'm used to my tenants staying with me 6, 7, 8 years, right? So this turnover thing, right? And so for me, what I tried to do was I literally went through every pinging point that I could think of, right? And wrote them all down and tried to go find answers for them, right? And before I even jumped in, right? And so, and that's what I've been doing. So, I literally got a 12-page PowerPoint deck on our plan as far as how we're going to do marketing, how we're going to advertise on the different platforms, what type of property management software I want to use, what type of cleaners and cleaning services and backup cleaning services I want to use. And so all of these gems that I'm hearing, and more importantly, the most important thing I've done, I went out and gotten a lot of coaches. I have lots of people. Now, I bring some value, so I'm not necessarily having to pay for a lot of coaching programs or whatnot, but I've got a lot of what I consider some of the industry titans that are really, really doing what I want to do in a meaningful way. Now, what I'm also, what the benefit for me is I know how to access capital, right? That's, when you're a traditional real estate investor, that's the key. You know how to access capital and things like that. So I'm using that as my advantage. And so instead of doing the co-hosting model or the arbitrage, I'm a long-term investor. So if I start making $20,000 a month, I kind of want to make that $20,000 a month forever, right? I don't want to go up and down. Like maybe a arbitrage model where you could lose the property because the landlord might kick you out because you're not operating well and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to make sure I had control. I wanted to control the homeowner association deal. So I wanted to take out some of these risk factors that I've heard, municipalities changing laws. So I wanted to mitigate a lot of these risks, right? So that's why purchasing the property, then putting the short-term rental on top was key for us in our strategy because, one, I don't have an HOA. I don't have any neighbors in this. We just bought an eightplex, and we're going to use this as a model. It's geographically, strategically located in an area where we can have multiple avatars as a consumer. Because, again, my background is in consumer sales and things like that from a work perspective, so I understand how to talk to consumers and use data to my advantage. And so we're just researching, getting on some of these platforms, AirBNB, getting all that data, figuring out what I can price at the lowest amount, figuring out ways to do add-ons. We're going to do Turo. I'm not sure if Turo is out there, where you kind of buy a car and you rent it and all that kind of bit. So we've got some ideas. It's a lot out there, but we're taking our time. Yeah. It's been about 9 months.
Yeah. So you've got your properties at the moment. So you've got your portfolio of different properties, and then you said, okay, we've got to go into the short-term rental space. Obviously, you could have chosen to take one of your existing properties and then done the switch. But what is your strategy being once you've done your research, and now I know that you're kind of at the next step of getting into it? What are your thoughts right now on the best way to approach it, and what are you actually doing?
Yeah, so one, the biggest thing we knew was that we had a very, very strong integrated vertical model in the long-term rental space, and that those properties had to maintain success while we're entering a new business model, right? While we're trying to grow and learn all of the systems that are needed in a more complicated business model, right? So my wife, she's taking on all of the old units, the ones that are traditional, right, as we transition, making sure that they're still stable and all that good stuff. And we've got property management. We've got all kind of great systems in place. I could talk for days on that, right? And what I'm doing is I've spent the last 9 months researching, and strategically, to your point, we could have taken one of our previous units, but we really wanted to make sure that we came out very strong. So we were very intentional on the type of property that we wanted to acquire to be successful in this space from a consumer perspective, right? We were kind of like, hey, a couple of our properties could work. We didn't want to go, it could work. We wanted to go, okay, this is in a great location. It's got tourism. It's got medical professionals. So we got staycation type of people. So we had 4 or 5 different avatars that we wanted to be able to make sure that this property, the location, and what we were offering on this property could give us the best possible success in the future, and be sustainable. That was the key for us, to be sustainable. That's where the ownership comes in. You know, if I own the property, I can be there. The margins are higher because a mortgage is going to always be more cheaper than rent, and from an arbitrage model. So we wanted to really bring up all of the ways that we could be successful. We wanted to gain equity, right? And so again, the biggest thing right now, what I'm doing is really making sure that I've got all of the systems, all of the software that I want to implement ready to go once we're ready, once we're finished our a refurb. I'm going to use your term, refurb.
Well, you can use either or. Our audience goes everywhere, so I think that's the disadvantages of the internet now, is we all have to get a common language so that we all speak the same thing. So, you know, you say HOA and I go, well, what's he talking about?
Oh, sorry, homeowners association. I'm sorry.
So that's all right, because they're all called different things in different places. But we're all talking the same thing. And I think that's the beauty of this particular show, is that you can learn so much from different territories, from different people doing things in different ways in different places. And historically in the world, what would happen is you'd have one territory that would be a leader and everybody would kind of follow, like 2 or 3 or 5 years later. Australia is a real culprit to this. We're very, very far behind in a lot of different areas, but that's speeding up now that we've got better communication. Companies are willing to invest in over here as well. Even yourself, you're taking your time to spend with us to help an Australian market, but then also the funny thing is there'll be the converse effect where we can help you guys as well. So
absolutely,
it's an interesting one. So so you've got those 8 units. You're in you're setting up what you're calling a boutique hotel. Tell us just a little bit about what that setup looks like. Tell me whether it's local to you or not. And tell me, so you've started to sort of talk about your avatar a little bit, because that's something which is very important to understand, particularly in the short-term rental space.
Yeah, so geographically, you know, so it was really intentional for us to buy the right property to where we were maximizing. I'm living in the city of Houston. This is the 3rd largest county in America. This is the 4th largest city, 3rd largest county in America. So as far as people, right, traveling, all of that stuff, this has a lot of potential. So for us, we're right smack in the middle of the city. Like I said, my background is I know how to go acquire property, the property that I want in locations that I want, right? And so for us, the key was, I understand a lot of this is trial and error, but I want to mitigate the error, right? I want to shrink that error as much as possible. And so, one, we've got 8 units. They're 4 up and 4 down. So as a landlord, I understand that the people on the down units always going to get it on their nerves of the up units, right? So the 4 units up, we're going to really target what long-term stays. So geographically, this property is within about 6 to 8 minutes away from our largest medical district in the south of Southern America. So the Houston Medical Center is extremely large. It's known for its cancer research. It's known for people coming in all over America to get cancer treatments, right? I'm literally 6 to 8 minutes away from this location. So 4 units up, we want to absolutely focus on those medical professionals from a travel perspective. Keep those units very generic, right? Keep those, make sure that they're really aligned with any of the traveling professionals, whether it's medical or non, but we really want to focus on that. Also geographically located, we're located by three major universities of Houston. And so these universities have a lot of tech hubs. So the city is building a lot of tech. So there's a major university called Rice University. It's a premier semi-southern Ivy League school or whatever. That's how they brand themselves. But they have partnered with the city to really build a tech hub. So we're also geographically, literally right down the street from this new tech hub that we're going to build to. So the idea is really focus on those type of those long-term stays, people that might be traveling in for work or medical professionals. So really, really focusing the units on that, making sure we have the blackout shades, making sure we've got workstations, all those upsell items. Those will be the 4 up top. Then the bottom units, we're gonna play around a little bit. we're gonna have a little fun with those or whatnot. And so there we'll have 4 distinct different themed rooms. And the idea there is that obviously those 4 themed rooms will maybe accommodate or go after some different clienteles that, there's a lot of food. This is a great food area that we're in. People kind of come in and travel. They might want to be at our location if they want to move around the city and kind of go to some of the great restaurants, go to some of the great museums. This area is also kind of called the Museum District. So we want to really kind of create some conversations around that. And really one of the rooms that we're going to theme out, I'll give you one of the rooms that we're going to theme out ideas. It's going to be a history of Houston and in the area. So we're really going to highlight Houston as a marketplace. And for any travelers that might be coming in, we really want to focus on them. And not just travelers like, oh, let me give them a pack and play. I'm not talking about that, right? I'm talking about this unit will speak to Houston, Texas, the history of Houston, Texas, do the wallpaper. We're going to go all out, telling our story of where you're at for any travelers that may not know Houston. So we're really going to try that as a theme, and then it being geographically located near museums, right? And then we're going to try to partner with some of the local businesses that highlight some of the local historic type of Houston businesses, restaurants that are really, really local to here. So we won't just be putting the chain restaurant in our guidebook. It'll be really, really local, really, really sharp, trying to capitalize on those tourists that historically really wasn't, but now with the pandemic, we're seeing Houston as being more of a tourist town. And so we really want to focus in on that. For the bottom 4 units, but one for sure will be Houston based, and then we have 3 others that are kind of interesting in their own rights as well. But the idea is that maybe if you have a good experience at one of the theme units, you're going to want to see all the other 3 units that'll be completely different in their own right.
Yeah, great. And look, we've talked about this a few times with other hosts as well, and they've said, look, having some sort of unique point of difference or USP is really important in this space, because there are so many short-term rentals popping up all the time, and you need to stay on the forefront. It's not just a matter of, hey, I'm going to get a unit and then start leasing and I'll make loads of money. It's actually having something that people care about, and it's about understanding your avatar. So the fact that you're already there and you're thinking about your potential guests and your customer is the way to actually do this. You think about the guest first, then afterwards you figure out what units you're going to get, what you're going to put in there, and everything else. What would they want? What does a traveling professional want in the place? What's going to be important to them? How long will they be staying here for? What are they going to visit in the local area? Are they going to have kids? Are they not going to have kids? What does that actually look like? And then you can start to build something which caters to that particular demographic, and you can create something which nobody else actually has. So hotels can't go and just create this stuff. And other short-term rentals may be able to do it, but they're already going to be on the back foot whilst you're already further ahead. So I absolutely love the fact that you've had this kind of way of thinking already. And as you'll appreciate, there's no definitive answer, right? You can look at what other people have done, and you can be like, hey, I'll try my best to do this, and we'll do different themes and see what's going to work.
You got to shoot. You got to shoot a shot, right? You have to take a chance, and it's a calculated risk. But I love the point that you're making, because like even in my corporate world, we call it the consumer decides. We say the consumer makes a decision, right? Sure. And if you're focused on the consumer, it's hard to lose when you're focusing on the consumer constantly. What do they want? What do they need? What are they looking for? And the biggest thing that I've learned about this business over the last 9 months is that it's an experience. So how do I give them an experience is what I'm really, really focused on, right? I want them to, literally today, we cleared out some bushes outside of our wall. We have a 2-story wall facing the main street that this is on. This is on a pretty busy street, and we're gonna use that wall. That wall is going to be an Instagrammable wall. It's very, very big, and we're going to invite people to just come walk up and take a photo, right? So we're really, really going to be focused on each of those 4 tailored units being very Instagrammable, being very something that they want to take pictures in, they want to have an experience in. That's our goal. And for me, the numbers make sense because I see the potential revenue being so much higher than a traditional long-term rent. So we're willing to invest a little bit more money to make sure that those experiences come to life.
Whew. That's amazing. I love this story, and I love this challenge that you're going down. I love your strategic mindset in terms of it's very, very clear that even though you know nothing about short-term rentals, you know an awful lot already, right? And I think that that's the biggest value that anyone in the audience can actually gain is that you might be thinking of doing something. How do you go about thinking about it? How do you go about down this journey? So you look at your strengths. So that's what you've done. You go, what are my strengths? This is what I'm really good at. I'm not good at these other bits and pieces. For the bits you're not good at, you've gone out there and you've seeked advice. So you've got onto Clubhouse, you've got onto different things. You're looking at other people that have already done this and say, hey guys, what do I do? How do I do this? And they're going to give you ideas. And then you're going to go back to the drawing board and say, well, what's going to work for me and with my business and what I'm going to get excited about. You've got excitement about what you're doing, about what you're building, which is really cool. And you've also decided not to invest in it properly, right? Is to understand that once I get going, I need to put enough time and enough effort to actually make sure this is a success. Onaje, our time has run out, unfortunately. But more unfortunately for the audience, because I know that you've got so much more to give, and I know that there's sort of different aspects to how you look at business and different things that you're doing. You've given your time to us, so I want to thank you for that. What can we do for you as a community?
Yeah, just follow me. I'm at onaje10k.com. I'm on various platforms. If you go to onaje10k.com, you'll find a link to our Facebook group, Real Estate for the People, and that just talks all about different types of real estate. And I talked a lot about inflation, investing, and markets and trends and all this other geeky stuff. Instagram, I'm always on Instagram, going live, telling people what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And then LinkedIn is more of a friendly, if you're interested in me being a data geek and hearing about that, that's kind of more my LinkedIn page. But yeah, I'm around, and obviously I'm on Clubhouse all the time, at Onaje B at Clubhouse. Always trying to give and hopefully share and learn some information along the way.
Well, look, I definitely want to catch up with you in 6 months' time. When is everything going to be launching?
I think we're targeting January for our launch. We don't have a firm launch date, but we definitely are going to come out more from a brand perspective. So we're going to come out day one with direct bookings, along with obviously being on all the OTAs or whatnot. So we're definitely approaching this as more of a brand than just a unit here, unit there, that kind of thing.
So what I would love to do is I'd love to catch up with you in January. If I can get your time around there, just to see check in this to see how things have gone.
How's it going?
Up to that point.
Yeah, right. And then we gotta see if it actually comes to fruition. But we're jumping right in head first into the field because I'm super excited. I haven't been this excited about real estate in 12 years.
That's beautiful. And then after that, another 6 months down the line to see whether what you thought would happen has actually happened. So. I'm sure there'll be changes. I want to follow for sure.
I'm sure there'll be changes along the way, and I appreciate you inviting me on the podcast, and the YouTube channels and all that for your listeners.
Love it. Thank you so much. Have a really good rest of the day, and we'll talk again.